So in this discussion, we are going to look at leadership in public health. And by the end of this presentation, we should be able to define public health leadership. How does management differ from leadership, or how do managers differ from leaders? And then we shall also be able to describe the core competences, personal traits of leaders. And then we shall also look at the teachability of leadership. And then we should also be able to demonstrate the importance of leadership in public health. So those are our objectives for this presentation. So we work in the healthcare organizations. These healthcare organizations basically implement public health interventions. But you have to work with the community in implementation of these interventions. So you have the community, you have the healthcare organization, the organization you're working for, and then you have government officials, and then you have other stakeholders who can also be other organizations, uh, can be profit or non-profit organizations. So in that kind of setting where public health professionals find themselves in, there is need to provide leadership, which is basically about influencing and guiding these entities that I've talked about in order to improve population health, well-being. And that is basically what public health leadership is all about. You need to have the skills to motivate, to influence, and guide organizations, people, and communities in order to achieve improved health outcomes at a population level. That is what we that is what we call public health leadership. So that therefore means that you should know the skills of leadership. You should have the competences, should demonstrate competences in public health leadership. You should be able to conduct yourself in an ethical way. You should know the strategies of influencing, motivating, and guiding communities and healthcare organizations towards improving population. Okay, so you need to know those issues, how you navigate around complex relationships, complex public health challenges, how you navigate resistance, how you navigate issues to do with making sure that you work in a collaborative way. That is what public health leadership is all about. So it is very, very important that we really get these skills and competences, because the nature of our work is that you're not going to sit in a shop and sell goods where you deal with one customer at a time. That is not public health work. Public health work is complex in nature because it involves multiple stakeholders. You work with different teams. So therefore, these teams, these groups have differing interests. Okay, so to be able to influence and guide them towards the objective of improving uh, health at a population level, you need to have leadership skills. Okay, so leadership skills are very important in achieving success. You enter into a community where they don't want a mass vaccination campaign. Okay, so how do you make sure that you influence and guide community leaders to lead the way in making sure that the community actually participates in this mass vaccination campaign? Okay, so achieving success in public health is connected to leadership. And then at a global level, we have cross border challenges, challenges such as climate change. You need to have strong public health leaders who can be able to influence governments to deal with these international public health problems. Okay, so that is why leadership is also very, very vital. And then the last point here is that public health professionals are people who advocate for the vulnerable. They are the voice of the voiceless. This is very important in achieving equity. Okay, so for you to be able to talk on behalf of those who are vulnerable, you should be having leadership skills that can really influence policymakers to act as desired. So we can see that with the leadership, there is a goal, there is a vision where you guide your followers to. So it is action oriented. There's something that you want to achieve. Okay, so there's something that you have to achieve. So you wake up every day with that thing in mind. So you are purposeful about it and understand the dynamics around this action that you want to achieve. Okay, so it means that leadership requires you to be highly dynamic, okay, and be highly purposeful. Okay, leadership is also about focusing on groups, but also it's also about assessing your own personal attributes about leadership. Okay, so it is personal, where you can focus on yourself as a leader, but it's also about other people or other group members. Okay, and then another very important concept in public health leadership or leadership generally is that you cannot be a good leader without having very good followers. So the concept of followership is very, very, very important. Okay, it's very, very important. You can become a successful leader if you have very great followers. Okay, the people who can guide you, who can tell you not people who just follow you. So we have effective followers and ineffective followers. So that distinction is very important. Okay? So leadership involves influencing behavior and intentional goal accomplishment. Okay? It's, the last point is related to the first one, which is that leadership is an action oriented process. Okay? You want to lead by example to make sure that you achieve your goals. Okay? So you are not passive, but you are actually active. Your active participation in achievement of the goal is very vital. So leaders and managers are not the same. Leaders are different from managers. The managers are focused on the task. They are task oriented. They want to make sure that things are done with minimal resource wastage. Okay, so they are focusing on productivity and efficiency. Whereas leaders are focused on the people that they are leading and inspiring them to reach their potential. Okay, so leadership is about motivation, influencing, and guiding. Managers are after getting work done. That's what managers do. So in order to get work done, managers, they direct, they control, they give resources, they stipulate the processes within an organization. Okay, whereas leaders inspire people to do the right thing. Okay, they inspire and guide people to do the right thing, or to they share this shared vision, inspire people about the vision that the organization has, and then people will be motivated and then pursue that vision. That's what leaders do. In terms of decision making, managers typically make decisions based on authority and policies. And then for leaders, their interest is in participation. They encourage participation, they seek input, and make decisions collaborative. Okay, so managers have this, that the decision has to be made by me because I have, or I'm the person in authority. Okay, I have this appointed authority. Whereas leaders don't look uh, at authority. They look at making sure that everyone is participating in the decision making processes. Followership is something that I've just discussed. That good leaders need good followers. With managers, we don't talk about followers, we talk about subordinates. And the subordinates actually follow the directives of the manager. Okay, whereas leaders need to have followers who inspire and willingly follow their vision. And then in terms of motivation, you have managers using rewards and punishments and incentives to drive performance. With leaders, it's about inspiring and motivating people to see the vision of the organization. And then they lead through as an example. Okay, so leaders do not use incentives, they don't. Whereas managers, that's the tool of management. In terms of risk taking, managers are typically risk averse. They focus on stability and predictability. They don't risk. They want things to remain the same, relatively the same. Okay, but leaders um, are more willing to take calculated risks and embracing change and innovation. So that means that leaders are the venturers. They can venture into areas that they have not been to. But managers, they really don't want to cause instability a lot. They want to be in control. Okay, so it limits the potentials, the potential of managers to take drastic risks. Communication style. Managers emphasize the use of formal communication. Uh, that means that you have to follow through the formal reporting structures, whereas the leaders are focused on open and transparent communication and encourage feedback, okay, regardless of one's position. Okay, um, I want to use one example about this point in the context of our country. Uh, there was one time I wrote a letter to a head of one government agency, and then the executive director, to the person I addressed the letter to, said, "But how do you write to this office? What position do you hold? Okay, for you to communicate to a leader in a particular agency, you don't need to have a title. You don't need. You should. If that person is actually a leader, they could be interested in what message did I have to deliver to him. Okay, so that's the issue there with the communication style. And then we move to relationships. With managers, the focus is on formal. Basically, with managers, think about formalities. Okay, formalities in communication, formalities in relations, and things like that. So they're often not very flexible. They are rigid. They want to follow rules. They're tight on rules. They're tight. So they're mostly bureaucratic in nature. Okay, whereas leaders, it's about um, someone having a shared vision. Okay, regardless of who you are. They are open to conversations, they're open to communication, they're open to fostering good relationships and the trust. They focus a lot on long-term goals and inspiring a sense of purpose and direction. Okay, so those are basically leaders. But the moment you have someone who is very rigid, then you have issues to do with formalities, channels of communication. Uh, who are you to write to me? Uh, did you follow the right channels to come to this office? Things like that are very common with manager. So as public health leaders, you really need to have the following competences. One, um, you should be imaginative and be able to create evidence-based change. Okay, you should have that mind that can distill evidence. Okay, um, you distill this evidence and use it to create the change that you desire. Okay, you should be having the proper interpersonal skills to influence key actors to support an idea that you're actually following through. So interpersonal skills are actually very important. You're going to work with different professionals. They could be professionals who are scientists. They could be educationists. They could be lawyers. You should be able to work with them, okay? And you should also be able to operate or even work closely with other organizations, even with other fields. That's very, very vital. And then team building and working with them, because you just need to remember what I've just said. Public health is not like you're having a shop and you're selling your items to customers that come to your organization. I mean, to your shop. With public health, you're working with groups of people. Okay, so that means you really need to understand what we call group dynamics. Uh, the, these groups consist of individuals who come with different backgrounds, or in terms of culture, in terms of professionalism, in terms of many other distinguishing characteristics. But you should be able to work with them. So you should have what we call multicultural competence or cultural competence. Okay, you should be able to do that. Systems thinking, envisioning futures, strategic assessment, communication and change dynamics. All these are competences that you really need to have. So this figure here illustrates the key aspects that you'll be actually working with, the key areas of your practice. You want to create change. That change will come through influencing politics. Okay. And then again, for you to influence the politics, you need teams. You will not influence politics alone. You need to build teams. Okay. And these teams are from diverse areas, diverse geographical locations, diverse organizations. So you need to know the operations of organizations. Okay. So those are the areas where you really need to have competence in. So some of these things we have already looked at them. For example, we looked at policy making, the process of policy making. You remember the stakeholders, remember the agenda setting. Okay, how do you make sure that uh, um, your policy gets onto the agenda? How do you influence? How do you use media? How do you use how do you approach and sustain good relations with key stakeholders? That is influencing politics and policies. So those are political processes. Yesterday we looked at negotiation, okay, where we looked at the different bargaining techniques: integrative, distributive bargaining, soft, and then hard bargaining. You get? So you see how these things are interconnected with one another. And then creating change, which is basically that you want transformation, you want a change in population health. That change will not happen if you 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 don't work with different stakeholders. Okay, so you need to demonstrate to them, of course, through the use of evidence, that if we do this, this will happen. Okay, so that is very, very key. So what are the qualities of leaders? At a personal level, you should have the following qualities: believing in yourself, being aware of your strengths and weaknesses, okay, and being able to control yourself, self-management, okay, and then always strive to improve, okay, and then personal integrity. Those are very, very important. And now, when we come to you working in a particular context, you should know the following. You should be able to scan the environment and know how the future could be like, and whether you really need to change that future. So that means that you really need to have the mental ability to visualize um, the future, okay, and understand the drivers of this future. This is where you need to be aware of the political and economic situation. So you should be politically astute, okay? You should have that mental awareness and flexibility. Those are very important key aspects working out there. And then here, in terms of delivery of services, um, you look at, you should be able to direct people, lead, direct, and guide, okay? You should be able to hold the people to account if they're not delivering, but you should also be able to empower those that you're actually working with. So working in a collaborative manner is also very important. Strategic influencing is also very, very key. So when we talk about leadership principles, we are basically talking about the what values will actually guide your practice at the different levels of management. Okay, you can work at a community level. You can work at as a public health leader at the community level. You can work as a public health leader at a county level. You can work as a public health leader at a state level. You can work as a public health leader at a national level. Okay, but what are the things that really guide your leadership in these differing levels? Of course, you should basically know the leadership style that you can deploy, the appropriate leadership practices, the working of the public health system and its core functions, and what are the tools that are available for me to improve my leadership skills, or what are the leadership uh, tools that I can use in my practice as a public health leader. So you should know these principles um, that guide public health action. Issues to do with using evidence, issues to do with being trustworthy, issues to do with working in a collaborative manner, issues to do with systems thinking. These are very good leadership principles that you can employ in your public health leadership roles. So now let's look at the theoretical perspectives of leadership. What are the theories that govern, that try to explain how leaders are made, how they actually behave in different situations? So we have different theories of leadership. There are quite many, um, but they they can be categorized in two main categories in terms of the schools of thought: the trait theory and then the behavior theories, and then the contingency theories. Okay, what I need to state at this point is that um, we don't have one theory to basically describe what and how an effective leader looks like. So there is no one complete theory. Okay, but you really need to get each of the theories right and understand what they actually mean. Okay, so the different theories uh, from the the trait theories or the trait theory after the theories that we currently use, there is a kind of evolution in terms of thinking about what leaders are and what they actually do. So there is a shift, okay, where we don't only now look at behaviors, which is basically trait theory, but um, I mean, we don't look at the characteristics of the leader, but we now examine the behaviors of leaders in different situations. And that is the current thinking about leadership. So the early theories, one is the great man theory, where leaders are looked at as exceptional individuals that are basically made for greatness. Okay, so they have characteristics like charisma, intelligence, and the courage. Huh? So basically, they are considered innate. That they are born with. They are born as leaders. It's Gottman theory. The limitation is that it does not look at the prevailing situation, or does not look at contextual factors, and does not look at the influence of followers. Remember, we said followership is an important concept in leadership. So that is the great man theory, is that it basically talks about people being born with the characteristics that make them being destined for being leaders. They're basically born as leaders because of their intelligence, courage, charisma, and things like that. That's the great man theory. And then we move to the trait theory. Okay. Uh, these still look at what basically the trait is about the characteristic that they have. Okay, a leader maybe should have a particular kind of appearance. That's about the trait theory, looking at um, a man who is giant. Okay, something like that. These, of course, these theories have limitations. One is that there is that impression that um, leaders should be um, huge, for example, if I'm to use that, and maybe male. Okay, so there are cultural and gender biases related to this theory. So it's not really a theory that we can hold on to. Okay, okay, so that is the trait theory, looking at particular characteristics that are associated with successful leaders. Okay, of course, it has limitations that we have limitations to or issues or inconsistencies and biases related to characteristics of uh, leaders. Okay. Okay. So the challenges of these theories, the trait theory and the great man theory, is that for them they don't look at the context or the situational factors. Okay, and then they ignore the concept of followership and interaction. So they have a lot of biases in terms of gender and cultural aspects. So the current view, what I can call the contemporary perspective on leadership is that let us look at leaders in terms of what they do and what behaviors do they display under different situations. Okay, so that is the behavioral perspective on leadership. So we look at how they carry out tasks, that is task oriented, or how they manage their relationships with their followers, that is relationship oriented. So we have um, different leadership perspectives based on behavioral angle leadership. Um, so the current theories which are basically being used relate to basically the ones we are terming as contingency theories. Okay, contingency theories, which is that there is no best way to manage or lead an organization. Instead, the best style of leadership depends on situational factors. Okay, the environment, the people, the goals, the technology. They are the ones that influence how an organization is led. So those are the contingency theories. So we have a number of them, and we'll look at that. Okay. So basically, to further explain what contingency theories are all about, is that contingency theories are concerned with looking at the patterns of behaviors and the decision making processes the leaders uh, take, okay, in examining or in leading organizations. So that is where we have. Remember, we first came from the thinking that there is no um, best style to lead and manage an organization. Okay, the best way to lead and manage will depend on the situational factors. Situational factors, the context, the people, the goals, and then the technology. So because of that, we'll have different styles of leadership. Okay, so when we talk about leadership styles, we are basically looking at the patterns of behavior and decision making that leaders exhibit in making sure that the organizations can achieve their goals. So I guess someone is asking a question or has raised their hand up. I don't want to go back to. I don't want to minimize the screen, but I heard that noise, that sound. So if there is someone who wants to ask a question, please you ask. I don't know who it was. If you put up your hand, just open your mic and speak. If there is none, then we continue. Okay. So let's go on. Looks like there's none. So leadership styles. So we have a number of leadership styles. According to Kurt Lewin's framework, we have authoritative style, we have participative, and then delegative style. Okay. Authoritative is when the leader makes decisions and communicates them to followers who are expected to follow uh, the decisions or execute the decisions without much input or feedback. Okay, so these are people who basically use their authority to say, please do this. Okay, they don't want to hear from your side. Okay, those are authoritative people. So they don't use phrases like, "What do you think if we do this?" They don't use that. Hmm? The person who will ask, "What do you think if we did this?" The person who uses that phrase is the one who uses the participative leadership style. So they want to hear your opinion, suggestions, such that there is shared responsibility and accountability. Okay. And then we have the delegative style, where leaders delegate most of the decision making authorities and tasks to followers, providing minimal guidance and supervision. Okay, this is very important in grooming leaders. Okay, and also basically making sure that people have uh, they have room to exercise things that they have not exercised before. Okay, even to do things that they have not done before. That delegation is very important. Okay, so that is those are the three according to Cat. Then we move to this theory, which is basically theory X and theory Y. Okay, so this was proposed by Douglas McGraver. Uh, the thinking in this, or the theory suggests that we have two categories of people. We have those that are lazy and they don't want to work. They are lazy and don't want to work. They avoid responsibility. They are basically being forced to work. Okay, those are the theory X. So theory X believes that people are basically lazy. They don't want to work. They take responsibility. Whereas theory Y is that people are motivated to work. They enjoy their work. They want to take. They seek responsibility. They have initiative. They are self-directed. They are creative. So if you have two categories of people, these two categories of people, you will not definitely use the same management style. Okay. So when you have X, if you have an individual who doesn't want to work, then using close supervision, punishing them, and perhaps forcing them to do certain things, that is how you will manage these individuals. And then for Y, you don't really need to manage these groups of individuals, because for them they are enjoying their work and they are motivated. Okay, so that is theory X and theory Y. Okay, so you really need to know what kind of lead people that you actually have and what strategy can you use to get results out of them. Okay, and then we have the Blake and Morton managerial grid. This model defines leadership styles based on two dimensions: the concern for people and then the concern for production. Okay, so for a very effective leader, you need to find the right style balancing the two situations. You don't want to always have a situation where you are focused on production and you're not focusing on the people's well-being. And then you don't want to focus a lot on people's well-being and then production goes down. So you need to get an appropriate balance. So this is basically what the grid is all about. So you have the concern for people and then the concern for production. You want to have a situation where you have uh, high production and then you also have high regard for people. Okay, so you have a win-win situation. That's where you have team management, Work accomplishment is from committed people. Okay, so there is interdependence through a common stake in in organization purpose, leading to relationships of trust and respect. Whereas if you look down here, where you have low and low, impoverished management, you have people giving in little effort. Okay, little effort, exertion of minimal effort to get the required work done is appropriate to sustain organization membership. Okay, so you don't want really to have low production and also low concern for people. So that's about the managerial grid. And then situational leadership is that a leader adopts a leadership style that um, to the that adapts to the needs and readiness of the followers. Okay, so it consists of four styles. So the basis of situational leadership is about followers. Um, so when you have followers who are competent enough, then you don't actually need to coach them. You basically just need to provide the necessary resources for them to do their work. But if you have individuals who are not experienced and who cannot really take charge, then you may need to keep directing them, coaching them, and continuously supporting them. Okay, until you can reach an extent where you leave them to do their work independently. Okay, so that is about situational leadership. So you need to assess the situation and choose the appropriate way uh, to lead. Okay, for each follower or group. And then leader member exchange theory. This proposes the leaders develop unique relationships with individual followers. Okay, so this one-on-one relationship, individual relationships that leaders have with their followers is very important. Okay, so the kind of um, leadership style that you'll have will depend on the level of support, trust, and information exchanged. Okay, so how you relate with your uh, follower is very, very key. Okay, so that is the theory, leader member exchange theory. Decision making model suggests that optimal decision making style. Remember, we can categorize leadership styles in terms of autocratic, democratic, consultative, or participatory. Okay. Now, the decision-making model is about how optimal decisions are actually made. What is the best or what is the appropriate decision model that a leader can use? The answer may not be one, but of course, you have the different types that I've talked about: autocratic, consultative, which is basically participatory. Okay, you want to solicit people's opinions before you make a decision. Okay, so regardless of what you are going to use, what decision making you're going to use, whether it is the autocratic or consultative, this will depend on a number of situational factors. Um, One, it could depend on the nature of the decision that you're going to make. Okay, and its significance or relevance. And then sometimes you may have a situation where the follower is actually more knowledgeable than you, and that follower will have to be the one to make the decision and not you. Okay, so follower expertise is very important, and this is where leadership calls for what you call humility. Okay, knowing that you don't know is also very important skill in management and leadership. Okay, Uh, knowing that you don't know is very important, but also knowing who knows more than you is also very okay, and also having that humility to go and ask for expertise from a person junior than you is also very important. That is the humility part. And then the time constraint, the time that you really have to make that decision will also determine whether you need to make that decision very fast or not. Okay, so that means that leaders make decisions based on situation. What situation do you have at hand? And then the 3D theory of leadership. So it looks at, uh, it considers the leader's task and relationship orientation along situational demand. Okay, so still we have different leadership styles related to the task and then the relationship orientation along with the situational demand. So we have three aspects. That's why we're calling it the three-dimensional framework. The leader, the leader's task and relationship orientation with the situational demands. And then the multiple linkage model, which is that it emphasizes the complex interplay between leaders' attributes, okay, um, the features or the characteristics that the leaders have, and then you look at the followers' attributes or characteristics, and then the situation of variables. Okay, so effective leadership comes from managing those multiple linkages and how they're actually interacting. Okay, so it means that for you to be able to make uh, to be a very good leader using this model, you should look at those the interplay between those attributes: the leader, the follower, and then the situational variables. This is basically similar to the previous one. And then the path goal model, which is based on expectancy theory of motivation. Leaders align style with meaningful rewards for, for followers. Okay. How best can you achieve organizational goals? Motivation is very important. And if you link motivation with the rewards, then uh, it is very possible to have followers that you can guide towards organizational goals through the use of rewards. The okay, so this basically falls under what you can call motivational theories of leadership. Okay, uh, that is the path goal model. Now these days we use the following styles a lot in describing effective leadership: transactional leadership, transformational leadership, servant leadership, ethical leadership, evidence-based leadership. We use these terms a lot. So let's look at them. Um, Transactional leaders, they focus on, they basically look at leading organizations in terms of performance, okay? Where you will reward the people or even punish people if they don't deliver, okay? You deliver, you get promoted, you get bonuses. You don't deliver, you get fired, you get demoted. That is transactional leadership. So it's based on what do you give the organization, and then the organization will reward you. Okay, so that's basically about you meeting what we call the key performance indicators. Okay, so that means that when you enter an organization, you're given a contract. The contract clearly stipulates the roles and responsibilities that you really undertake. Okay, so um, your performance will determine whether you'll be rewarded or punished. Okay, so they act as managers, ensuring that the tasks are completed efficiently. That is transactional uh, leadership. So reward people and then punish them at the same time. Okay, so we go to, I've not gone through each and every slide there. I've skipped some. And then evidence-based leadership. Of course, this is where the use of empirical data is very important. Being able uh, to share the vision or inspire a shared vision, challenge the process, and also enable others or motivate others to really act. The use of data is very, or evidence is very key here. And then servant leadership, where the interest is serving the client or servant first. Okay, this is very, very important. Look at the person that you're serving. Okay, look at the client. Okay, when your focus is on the client, you basically need to listen to them attentively. Uh, um, um, if they actually raise complaints, you 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 need to understand the frustrations that they go through and accept where you go wrong, and then be able to improve continuously. You keep the desire for you to improve and make sure that you serve the clients uh, in an appropriate manner is very, very, very key with servant leadership. And then transformational leaders who want to create uh, change within an organization. This is very important, creating meaningful change. That is transformational leaders. So they should be able to inspire, okay? Should be able to inspire people, uh, motivate them. They should be able to take what we are calling individualized consideration in this aspect. Um, and then emotional intelligence and leadership. Okay, you should be aware of your own emotions and, and be able to manage them and understand the impact of your emotions on the followers. This is very important. So you need to be emotionally intelligent and apply it appropriately in leadership. You cannot be a leader without power, okay? But you have power from different sources. If you are appointed into a position, project coordinator, program manager, whatever it is, you will have what we call legitimate power. And then if you get promoted, okay, no, still that is legitimate power, okay. And then we look at reward power. If you have the ability uh, to say that, please, I want the other person to be promoted, uh, or I want that person to be demoted. That is power that you will basically exercise. That is what you call reward power. And then coercive power is that power that is based on the ability to inflict punishment or negative consequences for non-compliance using force, basically. Okay. someone who can detain you, that is coercive power. Someone who can arrest you, that is coercive power. And then expert power based on your training, the knowledge and skills that you really have. That is expert power. And then referent power. And there are people who created that kind of that sense of power because of how others look at them, the respect that they earn from others, likability, charisma. Okay, that is uh, referent power. And then as a leader, you need to be able to assess yourself and see where you stand and get the areas of improvement. Okay, so we have different ways in which you can assess your leadership skills or competencies. You have quantitative data approaches, qualitative, peer review, self-assessments. These are very important aspects. And then finally, we look at the fact that um, leaders can be trained, can be modeled. Okay, so training of public health leaders is very, very important um, for you to get knowledge and the different competences. Training. So training is very, very key. Though they are schools of thought, like the ones we talked about, that leaders are born, but still leaders can be trained. Okay, so that marks the end. Um, if you have any queries, please